I grew up in a home where the spotlight was never on me. You could almost hear the whispers that surrounded our family, words that danced in the air but never quite settled on my shoulders. "Look at them," my parents would say, eyes gleaming with pride, as my sibling, the golden child, stepped into a room. Their laughter would ricochet off the walls like confetti, leaving me in the dark corners, clutching my hand-me-down bicycle, a faded relic, while my sibling cruised into their 16th year with a brand new car, fresh from the dealership and shining like a beacon of everything I could never grasp. That day would remain etched in my memory, the day it became impossible to ignore the gilded path my sibling walked. I had stood there, holding tightly onto my old bike, its chipped paint barely holding on, and felt the heat of disdain rise in my throat. How could they be so perfect? I looked up to them, wanting so desperately to bask in the radiance of their achievements, the way my parents glowed with pride. Yet with every trophy, every certificate, my shadow grew longer, heavier, suffocating. "Doesn't it feel amazing, Mia?" my sibling asked, leaning against their new car, a grin so wide it seemed to crack their face. My insides churned like a storm. "You should totally take a ride with me, it's incredible." The invitation was dripping sweetness, but all I felt was bitterness, like a spoonful of ash. "Sure," I managed to mutter, forcing a smile that felt as phony as the fake leather seats of their new ride. I hesitated, wondering whether I'd ever be able to sit in that car without feeling like I was borrowing something that did not belong to me. "I mean, look at you, working two jobs," they continued, blissfully unaware of the daggers I was silently throwing. "It's so admirable, I could never navigate all that, you know. You're like a real superhero." The word hero hung in the air, mocking me, reminding me that heroism was only celebrated when it glowed with entitlement. I hated how, with a single phrase, they could dismiss my struggles, reduce my hard work to a badge I wore but that nobody else could see. "Thanks," I replied, my voice barely a whisper, as if saying it louder would shatter the fragile world I tried to inhabit. They had no idea how many hours I had clocked at the diner just to keep my head above water, or how my fingers turned raw from folding clothes at the thrift store. All they saw was a dedicated sibling who worked ridiculously hard, someone to admire, but never quite as important as the one who could drag our parents out for sushi on Friday nights, garnished with stories of luxury and splendor. I watched as my parents laughed at their stories, the tales of lavish vacations and designer clothes that poured from my siblings' lips like silver-peeled fruit. These conversations were like salt to my wounds. Every mention of sun-soaked beaches where they lounged in cabanas sent waves of frustration crashing over me. "Do you think you will finally join us for a family trip next summer?" my mom had asked me one evening, her eyes darting toward my sibling as if for confirmation. The question had burned like ice on my skin. "Mom, you know I can't just take time off. Life doesn't slow down for my two jobs." I trembled, trying to steady my breath, fighting the charge of resentment bubbling beneath my skin. "Just work harder, Mia," my father's voice rumbled from his corner, low and disappointed. "You are young, you have time." The dismissal stung so much that I could hardly breathe. I gripped my bicycle that sat in the corner, a physical reminder of my role in this family. I was the shadow, the one who blended into the background. My worth was forever tied to silence and submission. I craved a place in the limelight, the warm glow of acknowledgement, but it was always reserved for the one who existed like a dream, a perfect portrait hanging above the fireplace, while I dredged through the quiet chaos of my existence, working the late shifts and praying for just enough to get by. Each dollar I earned felt like a battle won, but the war waged within whitewashed walls was far from over. The hollowness consumed me with every passing day, evenings spent on the diner floor, the sharp smell of grease hovering like a ghost above me as the waitresses cracked jokes and picked up tips while I drowned under the weight of a shifting balance. I would head home late, exhausted, with aching feet and an empty soul, just to hear my sibling bragging about their latest shopping spree or a spontaneous getaway with friends who poured champagne over ice, while I flipped through bills by the dim light of my lamp. Once, during dinner, my parents lauded my siblings' recent achievements at school. I sat there, a silent statue, picking at my food. "You have a lot of potential, Mia," my mom said, trying to draw me into the conversation. "But remember, hard work builds character." Their words echoed, drumming a rhythm of familiarity until frustration sparked a fire within me. "Yeah, but it's almost like being invisible builds character too," I snapped, surprising even myself. The silence that followed was thick, like fog congealing in the room. "What do you mean?" my father asked slowly, the forks pausing midair, My heart raced, I could feel the tension building, ready to burst. It feels like there's a spotlight on them while I'm in the dark, I burst out, rage spilling over. It's like it's my job to watch them shine. What has gotten into you? My sibling asked, feigning innocence. We are family, I want what is best for you, I'm just, well, living, I guess. Somehow, that made it worse, the casual flippancy in their tone, like they existed on another plane where consequences didn't apply. Living, you don't even understand what I go through every day. You sit back while I struggle to make it, but you just coast through life. It's infuriating. The words tasted bitter in my mouth, and for the first time, the weight of my frustration poured out into the open, filling the room with an energy that crackled like electricity. After that night, nothing changed, but everything felt different. I had found my voice, even if it held a shaky tremor. A small victory for the shadow. The battle was just beginning, but already I could sense the gears shifting in the machinery of our family. The sun was sinking low in the sky, casting hazy shadows through the attic's small window as I rummaged through old boxes, searching for forgotten memories or relics of a simpler time. Dust particles danced in the light, swirling like tiny spirits haunting the corners of this cluttered space. With each box I pried open, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. Old toys, yellowed school papers, and photographs from a time when laughter filled the hallways of our home. Yet a strange tension gnawed at my heart, an unsettling feeling that today was different, that what lay hidden in the shadows of this attic would change everything. Suddenly, my fingers brushed against a thick envelope, worn and weathered, tucked beneath a stack of dusty books. I pulled it out and noticed my grandfather's name meticulously written in his looping script on the front. Curiosity overtook me, and I ripped open the envelope, hardly able to keep my hands steady. Inside lay a single document, an official-looking sheet, adorned with signatures and seals, the unmistakable mark of legal significance. A trust fund, I read, established specifically for my sibling, worth $200,000. The room spun around me as the words blurred into a haze of disbelief. I staggered back against a wooden beam, grasping the envelope tightly. My heart raced, pounding in my ears like the steady beat of a war drum. $200,000 for them. My mind reeled back to all the sacrifices I had made, late nights at work, skipping meals to save money, putting my dreams on hold. I had assumed that hard work and perseverance would yield the respect and support my family promised. But now, it felt as if each of those efforts had been a futile cry in the wilderness, falling on deaf ears. They were basking in the golden glow of opportunity, while I was stuck here, an unsung hero, an unworthy participant in a game rigged against me. I remembered every family dinner where I had poured out my heart, sharing my struggles and ambitions. I just need a little help, I would say. But they only nodded and smiled, unaware of how I was drowning in the weight of expectations. You'll find your way, they would say. Just keep pushing through. And I did, but now that push felt like an uphill battle with the ground slipping away beneath my feet. As I climbed down from the attic, I could hear them downstairs, the sound of their laughter slicing through my chest like glass. They were planning some extravagant outing, recounting tales of recent promotions, new adventures, and the thrilling prospects that awaited them on the horizon. I faltered in my steps, needing a moment to catch my breath before I joined them. Desperation clawed at my insides. How could I face them knowing the truth? How could I stand there, nodding along, pretending to care about their successes when it felt like a cruel joke played on me? I turned the envelope over and over in my hands, feeling the weight of it as a physical manifestation of betrayal. My sibling had done nothing to earn this. It felt like a gaping chasm opening between us. Nothing could ever connect us again after this revelation. Slowly, I made my way to the living room, putting on the mask of normalcy, hoping they wouldn't notice the turmoil churning inside me. And then I heard it, their tirade of self-congratulation. Honestly, I did put in the effort, my sibling said, chuckling as they leaned back on the couch, confidence spilling from every pore. The promotion was completely expected. I put in my time and it finally paid off. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to scream. They had no idea. They spoke freely about their achievements while I stood on the outside, staring through the glass wall of envy. That's amazing, I said, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask slipping over my true emotions. My sibling shot me a glance, their eyes bright with excitement. Thanks, I was hoping to invest a bit of my bonus. I think I have a solid plan, and with the trust fund I could really soar. Those words landed like heavy stones in my stomach. A trust fund? A financial safety net I would never have. My insides twisted painfully as I realized how this would not only fuel their ambitions, but eclipse all my efforts entirely. Yeah, that's great, I managed to say, attempting to mask the bitterness that lodged in my throat. I could feel their cheerful spirit radiating toward me, yet I remained hollow, consumed by a storm of emotions raging within. As if sensing my struggle, they continued, completely oblivious. You should join me, you know. We could make it a team project, put your ideas in and get ahead. Their enthusiasm cut deeper than any knife. I could not bear the thought of them treating my plight as another opportunity to shine while I remained behind in the shadows, the overworked sibling whose sacrifices deserved a more significant acknowledgement. I don't know. I have so much going on, I said, my voice clipped, laced with a vulnerability I was desperate to conceal. Just to keep it in mind. I turned away, heading toward the kitchen, needing space to breathe. As I poured myself a glass of water, the icy stream splashed against my hands, but it did nothing to cool the fire raging inside me. The anger, the jealousy, and the feeling of betrayal surged like a torrent. My sibling had their trust fund, their future mapped out with golden lines, yet I was left empty-handed, fighting an uphill battle for recognition, for support that seemed forever out of reach. I knew something had to change. I had to reclaim my narrative. This betrayal would not define me. I would rise like a phoenix from this ash-strewn plinth and make them see my worth, but how? The answer twisted in the back of my mind, waiting for the moment when I could grasp it tightly, and set my plan in motion. The air in the room was thick with the scent of roasted turkey, spices, and the bittersweet aroma of mulled cider as I stood in the crowded living room, surrounded by gleaming decorations and boisterous relatives, all caught up in their conversations, laughter bouncing off the walls. My heart felt like it was beating out of my chest, the rhythm quickening with each passing second as I tried to appear calm. The holiday gathering was supposed to be a time of joy, but I could feel the tension coiling within me, tight like a drum waiting to be struck. I had brought my famous pumpkin pie, one I slaved over the previous night, hoping to connect with my family, but the moment I stepped through the door, my attempts to fit in began to crumble. Look who finally decided to show up, my sibling exclaimed, a smirk curling their lips. Their words dripped with a mixture of disdain and glee. Our very own family disappointment. Laughter erupted, and I felt the heat rise in my face, the crimson flush spreading across my cheeks hotter than the holiday fireplace crackling behind me. I stood frozen as if everyone around me had suddenly transformed into a malicious audience judging my every move. What have you done lately, besides eat our food? They continued, their voice dripping with condescension. I mean, did you even get a promotion, or are you still playing with your little hobbies? Each word stung like a bee, sharp and unrelenting. I forced a smile, trying to brush it off, but the knot in my stomach twisted tighter. I glanced around the room, eyes flitting from the amused faces of my aunts and uncles, who had always favored my sibling, to my grandparents, whose disappointed frowns cut deeper than any knife. He had always whispered about potential, performance, and purpose, but here I was, suffocated by their expectations and swallowed by their legacy. I am doing my best, I stammered, my voice shaky as I fought back the tears threatening to spill over. I've been working hard on my projects. Oh please, my sibling scoffed, waving a dismissive hand like I was a fly buzzing annoyingly around their head. What are you working on, a scrapbook? Who cares? Everybody knows that you'll never amount to anything, right? The laughter from my relatives boomed, the sound echoing inside my skull, each chuckle slicing through my confidence like glass. I clenched my fists at my sides, tremors of anger racing through me, fueled by the indignities they showered upon me. I struggled to keep my composure as a lump grew in my throat, threatening to suffocate me. It felt like I had been swallowed whole by their expectations, their judgments wrapping around my chest as tight as a noose. At that moment, the reality of the family I was born into settled heavily upon my shoulders. I was the underachiever, the family's forgotten child, the one who had failed to keep up with the pristine image they all had carved out with their successes. The ache of inadequacy was unbearable. You don't get it, I managed to say, my voice cracking, breaking through the laughter. I'm trying. Every day is a struggle, and I work hard for what little I have. The room fell silent, suddenly heavy, but just as quickly my sibling picked up the mockery. Trying, that is rich. Have you seen what we all have accomplished? They shot back quickly, eyes alight with mischievousness. If you think doing your best is good enough, you are in for a rude awakening. It's not just about money or promotions, I exclaimed, the words bursting free, my voice rising above the hushed atmosphere. I could feel my heartbeat thunder in my ears, pounding like a drum, propelling me forward. It is about hard work and not being recognized for the effort I put in daily. Just because I am not meeting your standards does not mean I am not worthy of respect. The rising tide of my fury spilled over as I gestured around the room. It is always about comparisons, Always about who did what first. Well, I am sick of it. Respect. They laughed mockingly, eyes flaring with triumph. You would have to earn that, and frankly, you haven't even come close. My mind raced, 1,000 furious thoughts flooding in like a torrent, but all I could feel was the burning embarrassment and the humiliation that wrapped itself tightly around me. My skin tingled, and my vision narrowed, focusing solely on the gloating face of my sibling. With the laughter of the crowd ringing in my ears, I felt the weight of my tears flowing unbidden down my cheeks. Each droplet fell with the force of relentless anger, fueled by years of feeling inadequate and misunderstood, a burning need for validation cascading over me like a tidal wave. I stumbled backward, desperate to escape their gaze, to remove myself from the judgment that felt like it was tearing me apart. I can't do this anymore, I shouted, my voice a raw, fragile thing that echoed in the stunned silence. My heart raced faster than my thoughts could keep pace, and I turned on my heel, darting towards the door, blindsided by a strength I hadn't known I possessed. I felt the sharp chill of the air hit my face as I burst into the night, escaping the warmth of their cruel laughter, the door's heavy thud of finality echoing behind me. Tears streamed down my cheeks, mixing sorrow and rage, a potent cocktail that ignited a quiet vow in my heart, a plan beginning to churn in my mind. I was done being their punching bag, done being the one who never measured up. I might be their disappointment, but a fire ignited within me, a clarity that swirled with resolve. It needed to be more than just about money or prestige. It was about justice, the justice of being seen for my struggles, the worth I had disregarded for far too long. I vowed that I would expose the truth. Fury fueled my resolve as I sat in the dim light of my home office, the soft glow from my laptop illuminating a sea of papers spread all over the desk. My heart raced with anticipation, each thud echoing in my ears like a war drum. I was determined to bring our family's hidden darkness into the light, and I could practically taste the victory I was poised to claim. With every crumpled contract and faded bank statement, I gathered evidence of our family's financial mismanagement. My sibling had been living high on the hog while I faced the fallout, and I was tired of hiding in the shadows. I meticulously organized the documents, running my fingers over the printed words and numbers, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal. What did you think would happen, huh? I murmured to myself, flicking through a particularly incriminating investment contract. That you could just take everything without any consequences. I felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through me as I imagined the chaos that would ensue once this information came to light. Gritting my teeth, I pushed the anger deep down and focused. This was different. I was in control now. After hours of poring over these documents, I leaned back in my chair, massaging my temples. I needed a plan, something concrete, something that would make it impossible for my sibling to deny their greed. I swallowed hard and opened my browser, logging into the account I had created earlier. It was completely anonymous, an untraceable outlet that would allow me to expose the truth without fear. I glanced out the window, the sun slipping behind the horizon, casting striking shadows through the trees in my backyard. The world outside looked peaceful, a stark contrast to the brewing storm within me. As I typed away, the words flowed easily. Wealthy family with dark secrets, I wrote, carefully crafting my post to draw readers in. Financial statements reveal clear evidence of favoritism, one sibling taking advantage of parents' resources while another struggles to stay afloat. I could imagine the questions swirling in readers' minds. Whose family is this? What secrets are we ignoring? With every keystroke, I felt a sense of empowerment building inside me. I hit send and instantly felt a mixture of thrill and dread wash over me. What have I just done? I whispered, a wave of anxiety crashing against my resolve. My heart raced as I glanced back at the screen, my post shimmering in the digital ether, waiting for someone to stumble across it. I knew the chaos it would incite, yet I felt an odd comfort in the potential reckoning. It was time for my sibling to face the consequences of their actions. Days turned into nights, and every evening I sat rigidly at my desk, watching for any signs of the fallout. I couldn't sleep. I would scroll through notifications, looking for any comments or shares in response to my post. The anticipation was a drug, intoxicating and exhilarating. Every beep of my phone made my heart leap, only to deflate with disappointment when it was merely a grocery store sale or a spam message. I was pacing back and forth in my small room, feeling the weight of tension wrapping around me like a coiled snake. Then it finally happened, a comment popped up. This sounds too familiar. Is this about the Morgan family? The name sent a jolt of electric recognition through me. I grinned, a dark and twisted satisfaction emerging. Yes, yes, I exclaimed, startling my cat who sprung off the windowsill. I quickly typed a response, encouraging others to share their stories. The more comments I received, the stronger my resolve became. Finally, the notifications escalated. Ha, I knew there was something shady about that family. This explains why they flaunt their wealth while others are struggling. Someone needs to confront them. My eyes widened as I read, each reply fueling the fire inside me, transforming my anger into a roaring blaze of justice. I could see it now, the entire family dynamic shifting, people taking sides, and my siblings scrambling to maintain their facade. Mom and Dad won't protect you anymore, I whispered with a smile, imagining their faces when they discovered my actions. It was thrilling to think of the family meetings that would surely erupt, accusations flying like arrows. In that moment, I felt like the puppeteer, strings in hand, ready to unleash chaos upon my siblings' carefully curated world. Then came the message. It was from one of the family's close friends, someone who had been tipped off about my anonymous posts. We need to talk, I know things. Meet me at the cafe 2 p.m. tomorrow. My heart raced. This was the opening I had been waiting for. I replied quickly, my fingers trembling slightly, I'll be there. The next day dragged on, each hour amplified by my nervous energy. The cafe was a familiar haunt of ours. I had spent countless afternoons there, laughing and sharing stories with family and friends, but today was different. The air felt thick with anticipation as I pushed through the glass doors, the comforting aroma of coffee and pastries wrapping around me. I spotted the friend in a corner booth, their expression tense. Thanks for meeting me, they said, their voice low, scanning the room as if they expected surveillance. What you're doing, it's dangerous. I know, I replied, my heart pounding. But I have to expose what's been happening. They took everything from me and now it's time to fight back. I get it, I really do, they continued, shifting in their seat, but you're playing with fire. Are you ready for the backlash? I've never been more ready, I declared, leaning in to emphasize my determination. I can't keep living in their shadows. They think they can manipulate us and just walk away unscathed. But I won't let that happen, not anymore. I felt the fire ignite in my eyes as I spoke, each word a battle cry fueled by the injustices I had faced. Just be careful, okay? My friend cautioned, their voice a mixture of concern and admiration. Once this starts, you can't stop it. Counting on that, I declared, a fierce thrill surging through me. This is just the beginning. With that, I walked out of the cafe with my head held high, a sense of purpose solidifying my steps. The neatly woven web of favoritism was about to unravel, and soon, everyone would see the truth. The atmosphere in the dining room thickened with tension, each voice rising like the staccato beat of a drum, drowning out the clinking of forks against plates. I nestled in the shadows just outside the room, the clamor of the family dinner cascading around me like a tempest, and I took a deep, savoring breath. The storm I had stirred was living up to my wildest expectations. How could you never tell us? A cousin shouted, his normally jovial demeanor twisted into disbelief. His face was flushed, the echo of betrayal coloring his words. We've all worked hard for what we have, and you just let us think we were on the same playing field. Calm down, everyone. My mother's voice cut through the uproar, trembling yet authoritative. She was trying her best to hold the splintering family together, but her words fell flat as relatives turned to her in anger. I could see her fingers tremble around the edge of the table, clenching the wood as if it was her only lifeline. This isn't how we resolve things. You kept this from us. A family friend blurted, their voice hardening. All this time we thought we were family. How could you keep such a secret? And for what? To shield your favorite. All around, the table met looks of shock and resentment, fingers pointed in accusation. The flames of rage flickered as my siblings sat at the head, a flame flickering in a storm of revulsion, the light of their past confidence snuffed out before my eyes. They squirmed, visibly uncomfortable, glancing at my parents with wide eyes, the realization dawning on them that their comfortable bubble of privilege was no longer safe. I don't understand what you're all upset about, my siblings stammered, their voice quaking like a leaf in the wind. I thought we were happy. I didn't. Happy. The word exploded from my aunt's lips, her tone dripping with venom. You think you can throw money around and pretend that makes everything fine? We trusted you, believed you were just like the rest of us. But it was all a lie, wasn't it? I leaned against the doorframe, stifling the glee bubbling within me. Watching the once proud figure of my sibling shrink before harsh truth felt exhilarating. Their blue eyes flickered with a mixture of panic and desperate anger, struggling to piece together a defense that would placate the torrents of rage crashing against them. Look, everyone, my sibling pleaded. It was never meant to divide us. I worked hard for everything I have. The words felt hollow, echoing back with a pitiful resonance that made me want to laugh. They squirmed under the weight of their unmerited wealth, now a leaden burden they could never hope to lift. You think those trust fund checks are a reward for hard work? My mother snapped, her voice rising above the chaos, her usually calm face now flushed with fury. You think we owe you something? Everything you have was given to you on a silver platter while the rest of us struggled. Exactly. A distant uncle chimed in, his brows furrowed with years of pent-up resentment. You sit there flaunting your achievements, while sitting on top of a mountain of money that none of us have ever been offered. You just expect us to cheer you on while you're coasting through life. Inside, I relished the swell of infighting. I wanted to lean into the chaos that I had orchestrated, feeling the flicker of power course through my veins. Each word spat in that confining dining room served as fuel, empowering my little revolution, an exfoliation of their deceptive lives that unfolded before me. What's it like to have everything handed to you? A cousin challenged, fists clenched against the table. What do you even know about sacrifice? You sat in a bubble while the rest of us fought tooth and nail just to make ends meet. The back and forth accelerated, the air thick with accusations and indignation. I could see my siblings' mask cracking, the bravado fading, replaced by patches of confusion and anger, all clashing inside them like broken glass. You don't know what I've been through. They shot back, tears shimmering in their eyes, but their voice faltered, the exuberance gone. I had my own struggles. I worked for my scholarships. Your scholarships? My aunt shot back, her voice layered with disbelief. You think getting money is a struggle when there are people here who worked multiple jobs just to pay their bills. You can't even begin to compare. The table erupted, voices overlapping in a cacophony of rage and hurt. I could barely distinguish one voice from the next as they hurled accusations of favoritism back and forth. Each comment plunged like a dagger into the heart of my siblings' carefully constructed identity, ripping away their defenses, layer by layer. Enough! My father's voice finally cracked through the chatter, but his authority rang hollow. The combined voices of dissent had crowded him out, each word a dagger aimed at my sibling. As the chaos continued, the fractures in our family became, at last, painfully visible. Amidst the shouting, I caught my siblings' gaze, and for a moment they looked directly at me, their expression becoming a silent question. The look was desperate, a final plea for solidarity as if they believed I would step in to back them up. But instead, I felt an intense surge of satisfaction wash over me. I had crafted the perfect storm, and now it was their moment of reckoning. There was no way I would rescue them from this, just as they had never offered me help when it mattered. As the argument swirled, I took a step back into the comforting darkness of the hallway, away from the tumult of voices that echoed, feeling as though I was peeling away layers of deceit that had been covering us. The walls shook with the sound of their disarray, and as I listened, I could hardly keep the smirk off my face. I was finally free, and they were left in the wreckage of their own entitlement. The air in the room was thick with tension as the family meeting unfolded, and I leaned back in my chair, forcing myself to remain calm despite the satisfaction bubbling just beneath the surface. My parents sat opposite me, and I could see their astonished expressions as the truth of my struggles settled in like a heavy fog, enveloping us all. My sibling, once the star of every family gathering, looked small and defeated, and I savored it. I never knew that witnessing their downfall could feel so empowering, but here I was, grinning on the inside, ready to seize my moment. Are you really going to swan in here and act like you are the innocent one? My sibling burst out, their voice rising in pitch as if trying to regain footing in this shifting landscape. Their usual bravado had drained away, replaced by desperation. For years, it was all about your petty complaints. You have no idea what I've been through. This is ridiculous. I leaned forward, maintaining eye contact, a calm confidence washing over me. Petty complaints? Is that what you call it? Years of hard work unnoticed because you took the limelight without ever really earning it. I guess not knowing was easier than confronting the truth. As I spoke, the heat of my righteous anger ignited passion within me. I could see my parents' expressions shift from shock to contemplation, their brows furrowing, perhaps realizing for the first time how blind they had been to my efforts, my wounds. Let us be honest, I continued, my words coming out steady. You never had to worry about any of this because you always got what you wanted. Remember when you took my scholarship money because you needed it more for that important internship. The memories cascaded back like an avalanche, so many moments when I had put my own dreams on hold. The sting of betrayal still lingered in my heart. My sibling's face faltered, and I felt a rush of triumph at their inability to defend their past choices against the truth I was now sharing. I worked 3 jobs to pay for school. Every night, I wondered if it would be worth it, and now I stand here watching you squirm because you thought you could keep lying. But it's time everyone saw you for what you truly are, I declared, my words resonating in the silence that followed. Enough, my mother exclaimed, struggling to maintain control of the room. Her voice quivered with agitation, but there was also a hint of admiration in her eyes which made my heart race. This is a family discussion, not a showdown. Let's try to find a solution. Mom, there is no solution until the truth is admitted, I said, more forcefully now. How can we move forward if we keep hiding from what has happened? Where is the fairness in that? I glanced at my father as he rubbed his temples, clearly torn. His silence was telling, and I turned my focus back to my sibling, who was now glaring at me with a mix of resentment and surprise. Why do you have to do this now? They shouted, their hands balled into fists. You could have just let it slide, but you just want to create drama. I could hardly contain my smile as I tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear, feigning innocence. Drama? I think maybe you've confused truth for drama. I've been silent for too long, playing the role of the invisible sibling while you were paraded in front of everyone. I had to work hard for my recognition, and it's about time my worth was acknowledged. There was a dawning realization on my parents' faces, and I breathed it in like fresh air. I pressed on. Do you really think you deserve the trust fund we've been discussing? You think the money should just continue to flow to you without any regard for what you've done? Your actions have hurt our family. How is that just? My sibling opened their mouth to respond, but the words fizzled out into an incredulous blink. They glanced at my mother, who suddenly looked pained, almost as if she had discovered this whole reality for the first time. You should consider how your behavior affected every single one of us, I added softly, feeling suddenly vulnerable, the words threatening to spill over. For too long, I let my voice go unheard, and I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm sorry, they stammered, their tone teetering on the verge of a plea. I've made mistakes, okay, but I'm trying to fix it, I swear. This is unfair. Unfair. That word lingered in the air, heavy and bitter, and I couldn't let it go unanswered. Unfair. 'Cause you finally see that the illusion you built is crumbling. You had every chance to grow and be better, but you turned to manipulation instead. This is the reckoning. You can't hide behind your charm and entitlement anymore. I felt the walls of their carefully constructed facade begin to crack, and the sight of their struggle was intoxicating. In this moment, I was no longer the shadow lurking in the background. Here I stood, unapologetic and fierce, finally claiming the space I had always deserved. What do you expect us to do? My father asked, his voice shaking slightly, drawing my attention. We cannot simply divide our family over this. We want to support you both. Support? You mean enable them? I shot back, unable to restrain my indignation. Support should come with accountability. If we are ever to heal, we need to start with honesty right now. My siblings' gaze finally fell, their bravado crumbling like fragile glass, and it was liberating to watch. They glanced at my parents and then at me, frustration mixing with a flicker of defeat. I seized that moment, letting the satisfaction wash over me, filling me up with a sense of triumph I never believed I would feel. So let's begin the conversation with something real, I concluded, feeling deeply grounded, resolute in my stance. Let's finally define fairness, because it's time for my voice to be heard. I grew up in a home where the spotlight was never on me. You could almost hear the whispers that surrounded our family, words that danced in the air but never quite settled on my shoulders. Look at them, my parents would say, eyes gleaming with pride, as my sibling, the golden child, stepped into a room. Their laughter would ricochet off the walls like confetti, leaving me in the dark corners, clutching my hand-me-down bicycle, a faded relic, while my sibling cruised into their 16th year with a brand new car, fresh from the dealership and shining like a beacon of everything I could never grasp. That day would remain etched in my memory, the day it became impossible to ignore the gilded path my sibling walked. I had stood there, holding tightly onto my old bike, its chipped paint barely holding on, and felt the heat of disdain rise in my throat. How could they be so perfect? I looked up to them, wanting so desperately to bask in the radiance of their achievements, the way my parents glowed with pride. Yet with every trophy, every certificate, my shadow grew longer, heavier, suffocating. Doesn't it feel amazing, Mia? My sibling asked, leaning against their new car, a grin so wide it seemed to crack their face. My insides churned like a storm. You should totally take a ride with me, it's incredible. The invitation was dripping sweetness, but all I felt was bitterness, like a spoonful of ash. Sure, I managed to mutter, forcing a smile that felt as phony as the fake leather seats of their new ride. I hesitated, wondering whether I'd ever be able to sit in that car without